see, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is The Daily Dish. So I was looking through my journal today and thinking, what am I going to share? Because there's stuff in here that I just like, oh God, I can't share that. It's so personal. But you know what? Personal stuff isn't this how we really get to the place where we really start to take it in, and it starts to settle, and it starts to make our hearts change. And, honestly, changing our mind and changing our hearts at the same time means a lifetime of change. It means that our whole lives are going to change because we're connected to that whole situation. And I always say that we have a beautiful self because I lump in together heart, our heart, our soul, the empathy that I think is separate, that lives in this place, because I almost feel like we can feel our empathy growing. There's also the Holy Spirit. There's our higher self. And all of this connects in, and it creates the part of us that is truly who we are in this container of a bodysuit. That's who I see it. It's your birthday month. Who's with you? I don't know. Of course, Heather, you're supposed to do it. Of course you're supposed to do it. I think people who are listening to it need to listen, right? If you're listening to this and you go, ooh, I think I should do this. Who do you think, where do you think that's coming from? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about your beautiful self. There's a quickening in our spirit. Do you remember the quickening in the spirit? Mary had a quickening in her spirit when she knew she was going to have Jesus. Remember that in the Bible? Quickening in our spirit. That's the little check mark of God saying, I'm talking to you. And I believe with all of my heart that this is the connection that we have with everything. And this is why we feel so good when we are connecting. We're built for this. It's in our DNA. So I have this, and I have no idea what this was. This is from February of this year. And what it came to me, and I don't know what the situation was, and I love that. So the quote that I have on here was something that came out of my meditation, and it's my little quote. I always put a star in front of that when it was something that came as a result of my meditation, and it was, she had her experience too. Let that land for a second. She had her experience too. Have you ever had a discussion with somebody and it didn't go well? Or maybe you're seeing things from different perspectives. I've got that right now with a girlfriend of mine, known her for years and years and years and years and years. And she and I go way, way, way back. When our kids were real little, they played together and stuff. We were a few blocks apart. We were both going through a lot of different things. And I was a little peeved about something. And what brought me back to that, to like, how do I handle this, was today opening up my journal. And here it says, she had her experience too. We all deal from our own perspective, all of us. You know what I mean when I say that, right? You know what I mean. Hi, Diane. When we have our own perspective, that's the thing that we see. But when our beautiful selves are expansive and our empathy is growing, we see it from somebody else's perspective as well. We move a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right or get down a little further so that we can see. And this brings me also to the things that I had been dealing with, like with my own life, is that my perspective as a 4-year-old shouldn't be the perspective that I have today as a 63-year-old woman. Because the 63-year-old woman is grown and hopefully has some wisdom. And yes, while that 4-year-old thing that happened when I was 4 may have impacted me, it doesn't have to define me. And the wisdom, I believe, in all of that is being able to dump that and understand that 4-year-olds are just so fresh and easily hurt and of course and traumatized. And that's not to dismiss the trauma. That's not to say that it didn't exist or it's not important. What it is to say is that we get to now redefine it by simply taking out the experience, putting it in the experience file, and then moving to the place of saying, I don't have to put that story on repeat anymore. It does not define 63-year-old Leanne anymore. No. And how much freedom, remember that's what we talked about yesterday. There's so much freedom in being able to let go of stuff like that. There's so much freedom in being able to say that is just enough because it just doesn't exist on my planet anymore. And we get to do that. We get to do that because, there's an opportunity for us to always move into the place of selecting and choosing the buffet table, if you will, of our experience. What do we want to take with us? What do we want to let go? What do we want to have in our lives that's going to ring the bells and make us say, that's it. That's the thing that resonates. And we're thinking, and again, I go back to this whole place. Remember, you remember the week that we talked about high vibes, whenever that was, a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And the word resonate is all about the vibration. So when we're resonating with something that's super low vibe and we're like, oh yeah, that doesn't make us feel better. But when we're resonating with something that's super high vibe, not only does it give us the freedom to feel better, but it also gives us the freedom and the ability to move into a place that's empathetic. Empathy is important, but it also, we don't need to, give ourselves a pass because, we're being empathetic. But, we all share this deep wisdom, I believe. We just, most of the time we overlook it because it requires a looking inside. And you know how I feel about navel gazing. I've talked about that before. I mean, okay, we can sit there and go through this inner turmoil. And I've been through therapy. Can I just tell you about the therapy I've been through? You don't want to hear it. You really don't want to hear it. Just like, and this with my parents and that with my parents and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, really, what is it going to do for you? Is it going to help us to connect the dots? Is it going to put a framework together for us that's, now I can move forward? Or do we need to maybe move a little bit to say, I don't have all the answers to all of that, but this is where I am right now. Because I believe that finding that one piece isn't the thing that's going to give us the whole framework for the puzzle. It's not going to give us a framework for living or life. It's simply going to be maybe an aha moment. And I think we need to be able to live without it. If it comes, great. But if it doesn't, then we let it go. We let it go because this deep wisdom that we all share that I'm talking about, well, we can put it into practice simply by doing some practical steps and without having to go to the place of endless navel gazing and endless books and endless therapy and all of that. I do, and I'm not dismissing all of this. Do you understand? I'm not dismissing therapy or even navel gazing. I mean, what is meditation anyway? I guess you could say it's navel gazing. I'm not dismissing any of this stuff. What I am saying, though, is sometimes that becomes all it's about. I remember I was in, just endless counseling, I think, when I was in my late 20s into my early 30s. And I got into a bad car accident. I cried and cried, and I called my mother and I blamed her. It was because of all the stuff that I'd gone through in therapy, and it was all her fault. That's not deep wisdom right there. That's blame shifting, and that's whatever. And instead, my mother, in her wisdom, she empathized and said, I know you're going through some stuff right now, Leanne. And she loved me anyway, But wisdom boils down to doing, right? It just does. It can't just be like, I'm looking for these eternal pieces of this puzzle. Wisdom really boils down to saying, I want to put all of this together. I want to not just look for puzzle pieces, but actually start to put them together. And the framework, that, and when you're putting together a puzzle, what do? We go for the edges first. Why? Because we can't see the vision of what it is that we're creating without putting the framework together. And another piece of that puzzle thing, if we're going to go with this full analogy, is we always have the box up, don't we? Have you noticed that? We take the box. It's like our vision board. So we need to know, what are we putting together here? Is it a sunset with a bunch of trees? What is it? Is it an ocean scene or a bunch of circus animals? What are we putting together? We have that in front of us because the vision is important and what we're seeing is important. And that's going to direct us and teach us and show us where those edge pieces go. Instead of putting the edge piece here on the top, we're going to end up putting it on the bottom because we're looking at the vision. Right there, boom, smack right in front of us. Doesn't that make all the difference? It makes all the difference and it shows us what it is. And when I say to you, the vision that you have for your life really is going to lead you to vibrancy, I'm talking about that puzzle box that you're looking at as you're putting it all together. Go for the edge pieces. Go for the vision. Well, first go for the vision first, then start going for those pieces. Start putting them together. It might take a minute, but guess what? Trial and error is what's going to get you there. And not just giving up and say, oh, this puzzle's just ridiculous and putting it back in the box. But that's what we do with our lives, That's what we do with our lives. So what do we do? So if we're going to say, well, I want to be empathetic. I want to be the woman who says, well, she had her experience first. I think that's the first step to wisdom, because wisdom dictates that we're other-centric as well as taking care of ourselves, as well as being connected with God, as well as being connected with our communities. Wisdom dictates that. That's how we are, that's who we are. So Darla says, diving for that pearl, put the puzzle pieces together, do the work. And that's exactly what it is. It is diving for that pearl. These are the pearls. These are the perfect pearls. I read it was nature's plastic is what it is, and diamond is, a diamond is nature's rocks. That's what these are. These are created but they're, not easy to find. And they're they require work to get them, both of them. Pressure for the diamond, diving for the pearl. So to become wiser then, we come from this place of empathy, don't we? If we can, then there's this calmness, this centeredness, centered with yourself, centered with God, open, willing, more creative, looking for possibilities, being solution oriented. And then I've got 5 things for you that I wrote down that I was like, well, so where does this all come from? Where do we get wisdom? How do we become wiser? Well, one of the big things is we get it by asking. Have you noticed that? We get it by asking. And I used to pray a long time ago, God, help me to become wise. Now I'm saying, God, show me wisdom. Help me to see where the wisdom is, because I believe that the wisdom is everywhere. It's all around us. It's what shows us demonstratively little pieces of wisdom all throughout our lives. If we only see, if we're only searching, if that reticular activating system is seeking it out, we get to see it. So show me the wisdom. Help me to glean it. Help me to process it and bring it in. That's one thing. And number 2 is understand where it comes from. Look up, from on high, all wisdom comes. And we are daughters of that King. We are the apple of his eye. We are here on purpose for purpose. Think about all that. It's unbelievable. If this is the case, then, and it comes from on high, don't you think he's going to say, oh, your girlfriend, you're asking, daughter, beloved, here you go, overflowing, abundant cups, the whole bit. So asking is really important, and understanding too where it comes from. Number 3 is, I believe that meditating is a centering thing. When we meditate, we get to clear the decks of all the clutter that's in our lives. Think about the clutter. I'm not just talking about the way my desk looks right now. I'm not just talking about that, or what your underwear drawer looks like, or any of that stuff. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the clutter that's in your head. I'm talking about the ADDness that a lot of us suffer from. So we have to clear it, right? We clear it by getting centered, and then also by the allowance of all of God's great wisdom, all of God's great blessings, all of whatever is there. We allow instead of resist. We don't but ourselves away. We don't dismiss ourselves and say it's too hard, it's too much of a struggle, it's too this, it's too that. My calendar says today, overwhelm. When the unhelpful decision to stop breathing, lose perspective, and forget that you're in control of your life. Unwise decision, right? Wisdom says we only become overwhelmed when we make that declaration that that's what we're going to be. It's true. If we say it's too hard, it's too much, I can't do it, that's your declaration. That's your unhelpful decision. And when we're moving into the place of wisdom, we don't do that. Instead, we say, okay, I just gotta get centered. I just gotta clear this out, and I gotta allow for what could truly happen. And your reticular activating system, flashing on and off and on and off and on and off. Number 4 is to be wholehearted. A wholehearted pursuit of something. And you've heard me talk about not half-ass, full ass, full badassery in a wholehearted pursuit of. You want wisdom? Wholeheartedly pursue it. You want the goodness of this life? Wholeheartedly pursue that. You want to have what you want to have? Wholeheartedly, 100%, not 99%, 100% in. No, that doesn't mean perfection. It just means intention. You're in. You're not saying, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. You're not standing on the shore. You're diving for the pearl. That's exactly what that means. And wholehearted. Don't you feel the difference of doing something wholehearted versus just half-assing it? Half-assing it is just like, milk toast. Why even bother? So when we're wholehearted, we're giving it everything that we've got. And then we have something to be proud of at the end too, don't we? I've noticed that as well. Feels really good. I do that every single time I do a workout or have a little run walk. I've been doing that lately with the pooch. All the different things. I always feel so much better about myself. Wholeheartedly, just, even if I don't want to, everybody doesn't want to. I mean, it's not like, just because you do doesn't mean that we're just like, oh, I just can't wait to do this. It just means that we've made a different decision and we've done it wholeheartedly. And at the very end, we get the reward. Fabulous. No regrets, rewards. And the last thing is, I think, wisdom, our words. Be choosy, be selective about our words. Timely. You learn when to say them and when to not say them. And beyond that, there's listening. And one of my things that I felt really convicted about, and a couple of years ago, and I really worked hard on this, is to be an active listener. I want to listen. I want to hear what this person has to say instead of injecting in as soon as there's a pause. Or and it's one thing, and there's that kind of a weird balance here of just saying, yeah, I relate to that because I did that too. I felt that way too because blah, blah. But sometimes it's a hijack of the conversation when somebody's telling you something. Oh, I remember, because I remember, I'll tell you what, I remember when my mother died and everybody kept coming back to me. And yeah, well, when my mom died too, it was really hard. And this is what, and she did this, but at least your mom didn't do that. I was like, really? Are we going to have a comparison thing? But when someone says it's hard and the empathetic way of relating to what it was that it was, the comparison stuff is never going to work, and honestly, comparison is not being choosy about your words. It's injecting yourself into somebody else's experience. It's not helpful. It's not loving either. When somebody's hurting, they just need your full on love. They don't need to hear your experience right now. Maybe later, but right now, no. Just love them, empathize, and be there. Our course in wisdom is our lives, really, because constantly, what are we looking for? is wisdom so that we can live our life fully. Because what does fully mean? Fully means all the way, wholehearted vibrancy. And that's why we talk about the carousel of crazy with this dieting culture that we've all been in. And we remove and step back from it. We abdicate that in favor of the life that we want to live, full of vibrancy, wisdom, love, empathy, care, concern, community, all the things. These are all the things that can connect us. That's all I have for you today. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of Leanne's journal. So I don't know if there was anything there that was helpful, but if there was one little thing that you got from it, we'll let it go with that. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Lizzie, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And I'm here for you, by the way, and I hold you all dearly in my heart. And I appreciate every single little thing you do, from buying and using our supplements to supporting our community the way that you do, and showing up here. It means a lot to me. It means everything. Thank you for that. It is my pleasure to serve and to be of help to you. So if there's anything that I can do, and don't forget, send me your testimonials. Send them into support@savingdinner.com. And if you have a testimonial, just put testimonial right in the subject line. Whatever you want to talk about. We don't care. We'll take it. Pinkies up, lovelies. Peace be with you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.